How y'all doing, folks? Welcome to this week's edition of the Outdoors Bound podcast. I'm George Noliff. Glad you can be with us. Folks, there won't be any trophy striped bass season on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland this spring.
We really need to act now to make some changes so that the situation doesn't grow any worse.
That's Maryland DNR Fishing and Boating Chief Lynn Fagley. Survey numbers are just too low. Since the upper Chesapeake's where 70 to 90% of all Atlantic stripers are spawned, action had to be taken to protect breeder fish. Now, the decision to cancel the spring trophy season was approved by the Maryland General Assembly last week. Hopefully, it helps to restore numbers for all Atlantic states, including Virginia.
23 degrees. We're headed for a big walleye. The bite's been good.
Better news on the New River, where Virginia's unique genetic strain of walleye are going strong. Those fish are stacked up right now, below Buck Dam all the way down to Allisonia. I got the chance to fish over the weekend with guide Chase Bowman of New River Charters. We caught fish using a variety of techniques.
To start off with, probably one of your most versatile techniques would be trolling. Trolling, I like to be using stick bait, jerk bait, and in the crankbaits. And then from there you could go to jigging. Jigging is a lot better if you're anchored up or you're spot locked up on a trolling motor. And jigging typically is a better method if it's brighter and those fish are deeper. That's a technique that you want to use. Trolling seems like better for me if I'm casting and I'm seeing a lot of fish chasing and following but not eat. Trolling, because they want to see that bait and they want to keep seeing that bait, and they eventually will eat that bait. And then even live bait, that when it's the toughest of all tough, you just can't beat live bait. The lures that I like to cast and troll, the jerk baits that I like is a dynamic lure. They make a great jerk bait for this, and that's the Z spec there. There's also Rapala shad wraps are good. Rattle traps are good when these fish are aggressive. Something with noise to it, that'll trigger strikes. For jigging methods, I like curly tail grubs. I like swim baits. And those are good options there. You can also jig live bait.
Now, those walleyes on the New are tightly regulated, and with the resource being so special, you can understand why. Only 2 fish a day can be harvested, and there's a slot. Any fish from 19 to 28 inches has to go back. If you ever get a chance to fish the New, those walleyes are a beautiful golden green color. I've caught walleyes from South Dakota to Ohio to Quebec, and these native Virginia walleye are the prettiest I have ever seen. Now from walleyes to bass. Valentine's Day was last week, so how about a love story? Well, sort of a love story. It's no secret Virginia has a love affair with bass fishing and bass tournaments. And we have a guy here in our own backyard who's putting his passion for bass into action at the sport's highest level, on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail.
These kind of trophies do not come easy, and I do not take it lightly. I've only had 2 of these blue ones in my whole career.
Elite Series champion from Salem, Virginia, the cruise missile, John Cruz.
To win trophies like that on the Bassmaster Elite Tournament Trail,
Come here.
you gotta catch a lot of these.
Come here. Gotcha. It's just one of those things you'll remember for the rest of your life, and it motivates me for every single event. Maybe this is the one to get another one of those blue trophies.
Not just anyone gets to fish the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. We're talking the best of the best bass anglers in the country, and one of them lives and works right here in Virginia. You might know John Cruz as the president of Missile Baits in Salem, or you might know him from the Bassmaster Tournament's broadcast on TV.
Ho, 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 ho.
Fishing is his life, and life on the tournament trail requires physical and mental toughness.
Got it. We're talking, 10, 12, 14-hour days, long days on the water. That's a lot of endurance, so you have to make sure that you're fueled up properly, you're rested before the whole thing starts, that there's more that goes into it than people think. There he is.
The tournament season gets started in late February with back-to-back events in Texas. The season's long, but Cruz says you develop a rhythm, and his family keeps him focused.
Actually, I mean, my family is, everything to me. Having their support is amazing. Got him.
Another thing that pushes Cruz forward, knowing he's representing Virginia.
100% I feel like that I represent the region of Roanoke and Salem and Virginia as a whole. You know what, I'm representing more than just myself here. I need to make sure that I buckle down and finish this thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, get loud for the cruise missile, John Cruz.
Now, John credits his business family at Missile Baits with a lot of his success, too, and that team has come up with something John says he'll be tossing down in Texas. It's the Missile Monster Jig. As the name suggests, it's a big jig, comes in 1 ounce and 1.5 ounce sizes. Cruz pairs it up with a big craw trailer. The entire bait measures more than 7 inches long.
You want to go out there and get the biggest bite in the lake. This is what I'm going to be throwing down there in Texas. I'm going to have one of these things tied on, and sure enough, I hopefully everything is bigger in Texas, including the jigs and including the bass in my live well.
You may not catch a lot of bass fishing a big bait like that, but the ones you do catch are gonna be monsters. Missile's not alone when coming out with a big bait recently. Joey Thompson at Thompson Custom Lures over in Gretna dropped me a message to let me know he's out with a bait he calls the Gorilla Jig. It's a swim jig, goes an ounce, comes equipped with a 10-aught hook. You'll want to pair that up with a big trailer. Looks like bigger is better this spring for area tackle makers. Speaking of big fish, they don't get a lot bigger in our neck of the woods than muskies. I had a chance to fish with one of the top muskie anglers in the country, Stephen Paul of the Musky 360 podcast. He says finish every cast with a figure 8 because you get a lot of follows that you might not see. And he advises wide sweeping figure 8s because turn ratio is a big deal. When I compared Musky trying to do a tight turn on a figure 8 to an 18-wheeler racing a Bristol, well, I got a response that only can be classified as vintage Stephen Paul.
George, I'm from West Virginia, so speak for yourself. The dream of racing an 18-wheeler has been one since childhood, sir. Living my Smokey and the Bandit dreams. No, it's funny though. Like when we were talking figure 8s and we were filming together, the first thing I say is turning radius.
Right.
This is, if you conceptualize what a figure 8 is, and if you allow me the latitude for a moment, but I hear people discussing figure 8s and the concept that it's veiled under is often as a triggering mechanism, right? It absolutely is. However, I consider it to be the cast continued in perpetuity, first and foremost. So whatever I did to get that fish's attention, I can continue this forever. We just need to add in something additional to trigger, right? So whatever I was doing on the cast continues here, theoretically, until that fish gets bored, he's engaged, or if it's hot enough, it will stay. I've had them 45 turns around. It's infuriating. However, the most important factor is width, right? So we have the stability. Whatever you do on the cast, you continue that. Right. And then we're creating that width and that turning radius, because the number one thing I've seen this cost people fish of a lifetime is they don't know when a big one's coming in. Nobody really does. And they come in and their figure 8 is anemic in regards to turning radius. And the fish physically cannot cope with it.
You can catch Stephen on the Musky 360 app or check out his new book, Next Level Musky Fishing. Now, I know a lot of you don't stop camping just because it's winter, but for those of you who like to wait until it's warmer, Virginia State Parks campgrounds reopen March 4th. Here's the thing, those slots fill up pretty quick, so your best bet is to book now to make sure you get what you want at the park that you want. Over in Richmond, they're talking about roadkill. That's right, I said roadkill. A bill is making its way through the General Assembly that would allow anyone to pick up dead bears, deer, elk, or turkeys that have been hit by vehicles, as long as those kills are reported to the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources. So far, the proposal's made it through the House. We're going to have to wait to see how the Senate feels about it before it even gets to Governor Youngkin for his signature. Also in Richmond, lawmakers are looking at a proposal to require hunters who run hounds to get a permit for their dogs. That's all part of a debate between hound hunters and property owners over property rights and a law that allows hunters to retrieve their dogs without landowner permission. We'll let you know how that one shapes up too. We're also hearing that a budget amendment that was proposed to pay for menhaden research on the Chesapeake Bay won't be included in this year's final budget. A bill that would have funded that research was postponed in committee until next year. I love it when I can report something like this. Good news about a species vital to Virginia's economy and ecology. A few years ago, the outlook for oysters in the Chesapeake Bay was pretty bleak. But in one of the most amazing wildlife restoration projects, oyster numbers are on the rebound. In fact, the report from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation says the Chesapeake is home to one of the most successful restoration projects in the world. We are talking historic proportions here, folks. The report says it's all thanks to cooperative efforts between states and the feds. 11 Chesapeake tributaries have had native oysters restored, and the plan is aggressive. It calls for 20 more streams by 2035. Here's Chris Moore from the Chesapeake Bay Foundation.
One of the most important things, obviously, is picking the right tributaries to work in. And so that is one of the broad strokes. Is there's been some work that's done, especially by the Army Corps in the past, that has helped identify some tributaries that might be suitable for restoration. Also, we obviously need to use the lessons learned from the very successful efforts we've had thus far.
Here's the thing. The news is good, but there's still more to be done. No resting on laurels. Even with the rebound, oyster numbers are still nowhere near their historical highs. The CBF says this is no time to let up. Keep those conservation and restoration efforts going.
That's a better fish.
We talked about that winter fishery on the new earlier. There's another one you need to know about. It's over on Lake Anna, where a hybrid species has helped to enhance an already great fishery.
You got a nice fish.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Get ready. You're about to see some creative biology in action.
The hybrid.
Hybrid.
Nice hybrid.
That fish in the net, that's a hybrid striped bass, a cross between a striper and a white bass. And on Lake Anna in central Virginia, they are a solution to a problem.
The problem with Anna is the habitat is not really perfect for stripers.
Striped bass like to live in the Goldilocks zone, where water temperatures and oxygen levels are just right.
Adult stripers, they need cooler water with enough oxygen.
And if everything isn't just right, well, that's an issue because they won't thrive, and sometimes they just won't eat.
They're a little emaciated, they're not in a great condition, so over time they're just not going to grow as well, they're not going to be as happy.
Hybrids are one solution.
The habitat is perfect for hybrids. I mean, it is fantastic.
Daggone. That boy doesn't want to come to the net.
Hybrids are more tolerant of warmer water, and they do all right with varying oxygen levels too. Because of that, in places like Lake Anna,
Pretty fish.
hybrids are expanding fishing opportunities. Happy fish, happy anglers.
I went through a school one time and I had 4 rides go down all at one time. And I was by myself. And amazingly, I got all 4 fish in.
Oh. All that said, Lake Anna still provides a quality striped bass fishery, but it's getting a big boost from its hybrid cousin. And that is going to continue.
They'll be found all over the lake, really chasing the schools of blueback herring, threadfin shad, and gizzard shad that we have here on the lake.
Every single year, we're putting in almost 100,000 pure stripers and 100,000 hybrids, which I think for this lake is damn near perfect, hopefully. And going through time, we're going to have a fishery for both.
They just don't want to give up, do they?
No, they don't. Here he goes.
Nice fish, Bill.
Special thanks to Alex McRickard and John Odenkirk of the VDWR for help with that story. Also, special thanks to Bill Thompson. He's the angler who took us out. Now, if you want to target those Lake Anna hybrids, use the same techniques you'd use for stripers. In these modern times, you might think we know about pretty much, well, every animal there is. But even today, new animal discoveries are being made, some of them possibly right here in Virginia. Somewhere out there in the wilds of Virginia, there are mysteries. What sort of mysteries, you ask? Well, how about never before identified species of animals? Sounds like you might need a detective for that. Good thing we have one.
So I study biodiversity, and our big quick picture questions are understanding what species are found where and what are the evolutionary processes that shape those biodiversity patterns.
That's Dr. Tara Pelletier. She's a biology professor at Radford University. One of her areas of research is trying to figure out if there are undiscovered mammals in Virginia. You might think we've identified just about every type of critter there is to find in the Commonwealth. Not so. New mammals are still being found.
One of the interesting things about this too is that mammals are a really well-studied group. So the fact that we're seeing a lot of hidden diversity even in mammals means that there's way more hidden diversity out there.
So where is this hidden biodiversity? Well, two factors come into play when you want to answer that question: geography and size. Geography, because Virginia still has a lot of remote places where humans don't go, like these mountain areas, for instance. And size, well, because size matters in this case. Smaller is actually better. So how small are we talking?
Small things that are kind of hard to find.
And what kind of animals would those be?
These are shrews, or voles, so are like really small mammals.
Dr. Pelletier solves these mysteries in the lab and in the field, where she uses a variety of techniques, including the collection and analysis of DNA. Each of her discoveries gives us a better idea of our world and even of our own species, humans. And the job isn't close to being finished.
So just the fact that we see this much hidden diversity in mammals means that we really have a lot of work left to do to document all the biodiversity that exists on our planet.
And Dr. Pelletier says there very well could be new species here in the Commonwealth, and we're sitting in the most likely place for that to happen. Why? Well, mountains can lead to isolation, and that means small numbers of unique species, especially small animals like voles and mice, could go a long time without anyone ever knowing about them. That's pretty cool, huh? Know what else is cool? How about 30 Seconds of Solitude? This week, a float through some rapids on the New River just below Baker Island. Man, that is just beautiful. Folks, we're going to leave you on that note. Until next week, I'm George Knoll for WFXR's Outdoors Bound. Tight lines and good hunting, y'all.
You build the mountains in your dreams. You lead the world so you can breathe. Whoa. You walk on fields inside your mind. You cross the oceans and the skies. Whoa. It's like you found a better way. Don't fight them all on what they say. Just turn around and walk away. But if you leave again, just take me there with you. But if you leave